Hello, I'm Keith Butcher, your moderator for the evening and a clinical assistant professor of educational leadership. The College of Education and the UH Alumni Association are excited to bring you Finding Balance, tips for managing your mental and physical health. As we move into our discussion, I'd like to share a few housekeeping tips. You may notice this informal meeting format. We wanted to bring a more relaxed environment where you can see fellow Cougs from the comfort of your own home. Feel the zen, if you will. Right now, everyone is on mute and will remain so unless otherwise advised. But can we please see some Coug hand signs? Come on, go Cougs. Thanks. Throughout this session, you'll have an opportunity to participate. There will be a couple of polls and you can ask questions of the panelists via chat. We encourage your participation. Again, welcome to Finding Balance. During these challenging times, we recognize that self-care is important and essential to your mental and physical health. To start, we'd like to get a pulse on your level of stress. So let's begin with a quick poll. How stressed are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being no stress and 5 being very high stress? Please respond to the poll when it appears on your screen. Thank you. It looks like that 3% have no stress, about 19% a mid-level of stress, moderate is 35%, high stress are 26%, and very high stress would be 17%. So we can all agree this has been a tough season. We hope the discussion tonight will help with advice and inspiration to help you manage your own health and help others. You never know whose life you may touch. With that said, we're going to conclude this evening with a mindfulness exercise, so please stick around after the panel discussion. And now let's get started. I'd like to introduce the Dean of the College of Education, Bob Mcpherson. Dean Mcpherson is a graduate of the college with his PhD in counseling psychology. He also has a master's in counseling from the University of Texas Permian Basin. He started his career as a guidance counselor, and something you may not know, he works out regularly at his son's CrossFit gym. So mental and physical health are near and dear to his heart. Dean Mcpherson, you're up.
Thank you, Keith. And yes, it's true. I've been known to do a few burpees or two. As Keith said, I began my career as a counselor and teacher in segregated Odessa, Texas, in a high poverty high school, and where I began to see the health and educational disparities front and center. I'll admit the kids taught me more than I taught them. I was an adequate teacher, but not nearly well prepared as we prepare our students at the University of Houston. I'm so pleased that everyone is here this evening. Like you, I've had my ups and downs with friends getting sick and the death of Houston's own George Floyd. It's been hard to find balance, but working out has helped. Playing with my grandkids has helped, and seeing the resilience of the University of Houston community has helped. Tonight, I'm excited to learn some new tips from our excellent speakers. Back to you, Keith.
Thank you, Dean. Now with greetings from the UH Alumni Association, please welcome Mike Paday, Associate Vice President for Alumni Relations. Mike, I believe you're muted.
Thank you so much, Keith. Technical issues happen every single time, even as much as you practice, right? So thank you so much. I want to thank the College of Education, especially Dean Mcpherson and his staff, for the collaboration with our Alumni Association on this very important topic here this evening. Did you know that over 300,000 students have graduated now from the University of Houston? Just this past May, we graduated our 300,000th alum. Of those, 182,000 live here in the greater Houston area. That means 1 out of every 6 college graduates in Houston is a cougar. And imagine what we can do as we harness that power. I want to welcome you that are members of the College of Education Alumni Association. But if you're not a member of that Alumni Association, we have 42 others for you to choose from to become a member of one of our UHAA affiliated groups. I encourage you to go to our website at houstonalumni.com to join us. But you can do it faster. Just while you're joining us this evening, go to the App Store and download the UH2U app. Many of you are faculty, staff, or students that already have that, but alumni can download that app as well. And you can find everything you need to participate at your alma mater there on the UH2U app. So on behalf of our team, we're here to help you find balance as well, whether it's our new book club or our UH2 webinar series that you're watching here this evening. We want to bring you some of that fun and some of that stress relief. So join us at the Alumni Association. We so appreciate the collaboration tonight with College of Education. We hope everyone gets something really special out of this evening. Thank you for joining us. Go Cougs. Back to you, Keith.
Thank you, Mike. Can all of our UH alumni please give us a thumbs up in the chat? We're so glad to see you. Now let's begin. Our first panelist is a clinical assistant professor of health at the College of Education and president of the American School Health Association. Please welcome Dr. Casey Solari Williams.
Thank you, Keith, and hello, everyone. And thank you to the UH Alumni Association for sparking this series. I'm excited to be here to talk to you about your physical health and how it impacts your mental health. Your body is this complex system of systems. And so often we think about taking care of your physical health and we separate our mental health from that, but they are one in the same, if you will, but they are definitely intertwined. Even if something is separate from one, they impact the other. And so I want to give you a little bit of background on that, a little bit of information on what you can do, especially during this time, and especially in particular, as we're coming up on the holiday season. And so we have holiday health, holiday stress, holiday blues. All of those things are really important right now, and then they can carry with you into the new year as well and moving on into, what's hopefully turning some things around. That is my hope. Basic recipe, if you will, since we're in the holiday season. I want you to think about what can I do to keep my body healthy? Well, the body's built to move. We should be moving every day, and not just your everyday movement and things that you're doing from day-to-day routine. Definitely keep those going, keep your routine going, but intentional movement, things that get your heart rate up, things that strengthen your muscles, and things that stretch your muscles. So that's your recipe: cardio, strength, flexibility, doing your cardio every single day. The vast majority of Americans do not get the minimum required of adult Americans do not get the minimum requirement of physical activity every single week. It's 150 minutes. And so that averages out to about 22 minutes a day. So you don't have to get it all at once. You can break it up 10 minutes in the morning, 12 minutes in the evening, or mix it up anywhere in your day, however it works for you. But you should be doing intentional movement above and beyond your day-to-day activity. That cardio every day, get your heart going and tells your body thank you and get your blood pumping. Making sure that strengthening part, you don't have to belong to a gym. You can be like Bob and go to the CrossFit gym, or have the CrossFit activities if that's your thing, but it doesn't have to be your thing. You can do things right at home with body resistance weight, with push-ups, dips, those burpees he was talking about, some jumping rope, frisbee, tossing, hula hooping. Fortunately, we have weather where we can go outside and toss frisbees. Hula hooping, my goodness, do you remember how much energy you must have had as a kid? Have you ever hula hooped as an adult? It wins you, doesn't it? But that's your heart being happy and moving. Playing games with your family. It's, people that you're at home with, or you have in your bubble, if you've been creating a bubble of safe gathering. Making sure that you all are doing fun things that are not just getting together and just being together, but also moving together. Play Pictionary or one of those other games, Taboo or something, or Heads Up, or something that requires you to move around. And then the fact that you're just laughing. All these things are helping your body to produce some good hormones, relieve that stress, right? We got a large number of us that have at least a moderate level of stress, the vast majority of the people attending today. So that helps relieve stress when you're moving around, when you're laughing, when you're dancing, have a dance off or dance contest, pretend you can dance even if you can't, doesn't matter. Just get your body moving. And then the stretching part. This is probably the element of fitness that people neglect the most. You should be stretching every single day. And, you know, my orthopedic surgeon, who's never had to operate on me, says motion is lotion. And I've been saying it ever since. So moving that body and stretching and breathing, those deep breaths, that stretching and holding those stretches 10 to 20 seconds, 20 to 30 seconds, really, each stretch is really going to expand and extend and lengthen. I call it lengthen and strengthen. And so remembering those three things, that's your recipe that you must remember anytime, but especially during this time where we're increasing the number of calories we're intaking in the holiday time. The average person can gain anywhere from 5 to 10 pounds over this holiday season because your meal on holiday is about 7,000 calories on average. Well, it's 3,500 calories in a pound. So if you do that math, that's like almost 2 pounds worth of food that you're consuming in one day. So imagine times all the different days of getting together. So be mindful of that when you're fixing that plate. The food, well, unless you're, competing with your family members, the food's not going anywhere. Set things aside and spread it out and extend it over a number of days. You don't have to eat it all at once. Your body, that's an overload for your body. But things to remember is that when you are taking care of yourself, when you are moving every day, when you are eating the right things and putting the right things in your body will in turn thank you for that. You will feel better. You will sleep better. You will be able to concentrate more. Your stress levels come down. All those things go together. So those system of systems within your body can operate in a beautiful way. The body loves balance. The body appreciates balance. But you have a choice to make with providing that balance, right? And when things get out of whack, you feel it. The people around you feel it. There's no such thing anymore really as personal health because nothing of, and that concept, there's a colleague of mine in the American School Health Association that just wants to do away with that term, and I'm fully on board. Nothing about health is personal because everything about you is impacting the environment around you, right? When you're not feeling well, are you irritable with people? When you have indigestion, or when that caffeine high is gone, or that sugar crash has happened, and then you're cranky, or you can't focus, you can't get your work done, you can't collaborate with the people that you work or go to school with. All those things start to impact your environment. So it's nothing personal about your health. But taking care of you first helps you take care of others and helps produce a different kind of environment around you so that your system of systems in which you live, not just the body in which you dwell, can also operate in a smooth, steady state. My final tip that I'll leave with you, I referenced it a little bit in having that balance, is drink your water. Especially when it starts to get cold, we drink a little bit less water. We don't realize that we're not hungry, we're thirsty. We don't realize that we might be getting dehydrated. And when we are dehydrated, that cellular homeostasis, that balance that the body likes, gets out of whack a little bit. And the Institute of Medicine doesn't have like really set recommendations. We do some just generalized recommendations. But based on the studies, I just say anywhere from like half your body weight in ounces to just like 10 or 20 below that. And that's your average or adequate intake of water. That's about the best we can possibly do. And then when you're physically active, add a few more ounces to that and just keep your body hydrated. Most of your water intake comes from your beverage intake. So good, clean water. If you don't like plain water, if that's not your thing, infuse it with some fruit, but try to avoid the sweet and sugary drinks. And I know those libations that tend to happen around holiday time, limit those, but drink the water. That right there, again, your brain's gonna love it. Your mind gets clarity, that focus comes back, and that system of systems in which you live finds that balance, and you can keep moving forward right now in the holiday time coming up, and then just any time in any time of year. So I think my time is up, speaking of time. So thank you all. We'll have time for questions, and I'll share plenty more during the Q&A time. Back to you, Keith.
Thank you, Casey. I like your recipe for now and for the holiday season. Now, our next panelist is a 3-time coup and a licensed psychologist who works with families experiencing adolescent or child behavior problems and substance abuse. Please welcome Dr. Annette Edens.
Thank you so much, Keith. And it's just an honor to be here. And thanks all of you who are participating tonight. This is an exciting occasion. There is so much stress out there worldwide. the level of stress is kind of crazy. And one of the good things that has happened as a result is that mental health is being recognized on a worldwide basis as being essential to health, which is, for most of us who are in this field, well, that's a no-brainer, but it has been hard getting here with mental health not always being recognized as a health issue. So the bad news, though, about that is the way we got here is that because of the stress of the pandemic and the hopelessness and the sadness and the loss, there has been an incredible increase in suicides and in domestic violence, and in people hurting themselves and others, and incidents of families breaking up. And this has all led our leaders finally to make the decision to focus on developing access to mental health services along with access to other healthcare issues. So as we experience the stress that pretty much, well, I think there was 76 or so percent, 78% of the people in this group here are moderately stressed or above. So we're all feeling it, right? Mostly, except for that 3% have no stress. And I think you're probably snoozing about now. But when I feel stress, I start getting inefficient. I get inefficient in the way I think, in the things I remember. In, one of the classic things that I do is lose my keys. I cannot find my keys, and no telling where I put them. But I don't usually lose my keys if it's just sort of under normal circumstances. But losing my keys, or spending a whole lot of time looking for my glasses, and I'll turn to somebody and say, "Have you seen my glasses?" And they're on my head, and that's usually pretty embarrassing, but funny. Those aren't too desperate signs of stress. But when you get forgetful and when you get distracted, you can become inefficient, and then you get more frustrated because you're trying to do a million things on top of just managing your stress. So get irritable, you get, a lot of the time you get physically ill, which has been scary because you're in a pandemic, right? Start worrying, you can't sleep well. And so what do we do when we're stressed and we're feel hopeless? We don't really know what's going to happen. This has been one of the stresses of the pandemic is not knowing. So we seek data. And so seeking data about the pandemic has been frustrating and adds to stress because the sources are conflicting and we don't always get the same information from one person or another. And then that ends up creating a lot of crazy conspiracy theories and hostility that that discourages that trying to find the real information that we need to help us manage our lives with this stress. So so the things that you don't want to be doing when you're feeling stress is starting to get catastrophic about your thinking. You get into social media and there's a bunch of negativity and people are being mean to each other and everybody wants somebody to blame. And so that ends up creating resentment and nastiness. Well, that is not going to make your stress go down. So my recommendation is don't spend time in social media, except for just connect with your close friends in a nice way that doesn't involve a bunch of drama. Screen time in general can end up getting a little bit overdone because we're already on Zoom all day long and in virtual classrooms, in virtual meetings. And then if you're also in social media doing a lot of arguing with people or blaming people or getting resentful or nasty or being told how horrible and stupid you are because you have an opinion. So that's one thing that I recommend that you avoid. Substance abuse has been on the rise throughout the pandemic. It's been a great difficulty. It's easy for people who are stressed to start having a drink a little earlier in the evening, start having another drink, maybe a little earlier than that, you know, so over time, getting to where they're having, maybe instead of having a drink every once in a while, once or twice a week, maybe they end up are drinking 3 or 4 drinks at night or all day. If you think your thinking is inefficient, just being stressed, then your thinking is just completely out of character for you, and it leads to problems with your relationships and with your health, and the only place that will lead is to your needing to get some kind of treatment, or not necessarily mental health treatment. Sometimes there are self-help groups that are very helpful with substance use. However, that's usually after you've made a lot of people pretty miserable. So please beware of that. Overeating and undereating. People get worried, they stop eating, or they get more worried and they start eating and they eat ice cream, or they, you know, so please follow Dr. Solari Williams' advice about dealing with your own health. The other things that Dr. Solari Williams was talking about is, I'm a great advocate for creating a schedule, have a routine, do the same. It may not be the same schedule you had before the pandemic. Now you're at home and things are going to be a little different, but have a routine that's pretty consistent. And that routine needs to involve some things that are sort of mind, body, soul, spirit healthy. So you might start with a daily meditation or with some yoga or something that kind of gets you centered for the day, thinking something positive. And that can kind of carry you through your routine. You eat well, you get a little exercise, and you try to work with other people, but you may not work with them very often or as closely as you used to, so you can get lonely. Call people you haven't talked to in a while. Talk to people. This pandemic for extroverts has been a nightmare. For introverts, it was like a godsend at the beginning. It was like, oh my God, I can stay home alone for day after day after day. But it's getting old. I'm an introvert, so I just thought, oh great, I can stay home and like think. But no, it's gotten rough. So you got to call people. You may not like to talk on the phone. You may not like to reach out and call people, but it is very good for you to be in touch with people. So I encourage talking to people, not necessarily getting into a bunch of drama on social media. If you're on the screen all day, if you're in a lot of meetings, just get up and take 10 minutes to go outside. Just walk around the block. Just do something to change the pace a little bit. And this next recommendation is probably one of the hardest for those of you who are graduate students and college professors, etc. You got to let go of the perfectionism. You cannot necessarily do it all right now. And so trying to create some sort of a priority of what do you really need to do versus what have you always felt like you had to do for everybody. So let go of the things that you can get by with doing just well enough, not necessarily perfectly. At this point, your sheets and towels don't have to be folded perfectly, and you don't have to have your spices alphabetized or whatever it is that those are some of the perfectionist things I've heard people do. I'm not, of course, talking about me. So avoiding negative people is a huge, a lot of us have negative people in our families. And we want very much to, or we feel like we should interact with them all the time. But you might want to take a break from some of that. If you've got somebody that's negative, that's critical, that's making you feel bad all the time, just, maybe they could wait 3 or 4 days without that phone call. And you spend some time with people that are positive and helpful to you. Now, for some of us, this stress will lead to something more serious, some serious depression, serious anxiety. And if that's the case, one of the first signs that you'll see in most people that you can see from the outside is they've given up on hygiene. Now, if you slept in your clothes and worn your same clothes for 3 days, there's probably something going on that you should check out. If you're not showering, if you're not interested in necessarily in doing the fun things that you used to do, if you're not motivated to do anything much, if you're having panic attacks and you're getting sweaty and heart pounding and feeling like you're gonna die, then you probably have an anxiety disorder. So if you're thinking about suicide, if you're pretty serious about making a plan, you really need to call a hotline, call a mental health professional, get some help. This is very preventable. You do not need to take that next step. If you're drinking or drugging too much and you're about to lose your job, or you've already lost your job and you feel hopeless, if you want to stop drinking, treatment centers are open for the most part. There are online 12-step meetings all the time, all around the world. You can have a meeting with people in Great Britain. You can have a meeting with people in wherever you can find a meeting that has a language that you can speak. But do it. It's not comfortable to go to a 12-step meeting for the very first time online, but it's okay. It's also not comfortable to die from a drug overdose or from alcoholism. And if you have a family member that's got a drug or alcohol problem and they don't want to stop, then you go to Al-Anon meetings. It doesn't, yes, you are the one that has the problem because you have a family member who's got a drinking problem. So please just go online. You can find these meetings everywhere, anytime. If it's the middle of the night and you want to go to a meeting, you can find a meeting in the other side of the earth that's got an English speaking meeting. There are some crisis hotline numbers and health care numbers that are going to be available to you that I believe are either in chat or going to be sent out. I'm not exactly sure what the plan is, but I've given a list. So I do hope you take care of yourselves and can find that balance so that if you're not healthy, you got nothing to give. So your friends, your family, you can't take care of all these people you'd like to take care of if you're not taking care of you. So that is my encouragement for the holidays and for finding balance. Thank you so much for being here and being part of this.
Thank you, Annette. We appreciate the great tips and resources for dealing with stress, and some of the great resources Annette was speaking about were listed in the chat for you to follow. Our next panelist received his EDD from the College of Education and serves as principal of Chavez High School in the Houston Independent School District. Please welcome Dr. Luis Landa.
Thank you, Keith, for having me here tonight. And thank you for the opportunity to serve on a panel to discuss a truly important topic of mental and physical health. So as a high school principal, I aim to address both of these areas by, one, creating a culture of trust and collaboration here at Chavez High School. One where each of us have a voice that matters, and one where we listen to one another. I additionally aim to make it clear to all of our staff and students that yes, academics are important. Yes, safety is important, but so is our mental and physical health. And as we all know, when we address these areas for ourselves and for our students, then we and they will perform better. And lastly, I give lots of active effort to building a team of professionals that can address mental health on our campus. So currently here at Chavez High School, we have 3 wraparound specialists, 3 counselors, and 2 social workers. And so these incredible individuals have done quite a bit to help support both student and staff mental health. They've created a newsletter that offers simple tips for addressing health. They have a simple way of referring anyone that's in need of assistance through the use of a QR code. And they even have a support group for staff that meets twice a week during the school day to address any issues that our staff members may have. We even recently had a coach jump on board who's now having weekly virtual exercise classes for staff members to help alleviate stress. So ultimately what we try to do is, again, create a culture of trust and respect, one where we communicate the importance of mental and physical health, and then build a team of individuals to help address these needs. I thank you again for this opportunity, and I look forward to learning more this evening. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Luis. Isn't it great to hear about the support that our students are receiving at school? Our final panelist for the evening is a PhD student in our school counseling program. She's interested in reducing stigma around mental health. Please welcome Ms. Kimberly Smoot.
Thanks, Keith. So 5 years ago, I would have never imagined being here on an expert panel. Being a first generation college graduate student, like I just recently graduated, and I was questioning whether or not I should apply to grad school. And I had people telling me, you know, family members even telling me, are you sure you want to do that? Getting into grad school, going into a doctoral program straight from undergrad, it's just, it's a very hard thing to do. So I just can't imagine being here. I just couldn't have ever imagined being here 5 years ago. And since then I have, I got accepted to the U of H school psychology program, and I worked on my candidacy for that study the effects of mindfulness on a 4th grade curriculum. And now I have a privilege to be working in the yoga and mindfulness lab along with some of my other great colleagues. And we are continuing to do work and research on mindfulness. So today, the goal for me to tell you today is to define mindfulness and its benefits, what mindfulness means to me, and then give you some tips on how you can incorporate mindfulness so that you can find balance within yourself. So like I mentioned before, I am a graduate student, and this time period, especially during this pandemic, has been especially hard for me. There's been a lot of changes, in our program. Our practicum sites got switched to virtual, but at first we didn't even know if that was going to even be a thing. We have a lot of the social distress, and the social climate has really been affecting me, the race relations, and I've had to do a lot of reflecting and doing a lot of introspection. So I do want to introduce what mindfulness is. But first I have to say that this definition that I'm giving is from the Mindfulness Ambassador Program, which was created by Gulden Esset and Saeed, with the help of Saeed Ritzvi, which are both graduate students in the school psychology program. And this mindfulness curriculum actually teaches college students to teach their own peers on mindfulness. And we've been able to incorporate that into different courses here at the College of Education. And so we define mindfulness as a consciousness discipline that can be explained as the intentional cultivation of non-judgment moment-to-moment awareness. Now, some of you, when you think about mindfulness, you might be thinking, oh, meditation. But really, actually, our definition of mindfulness is more of a lifestyle. Mindfulness is a lifestyle. It's something that you incorporate in your life. It's a way of living. It's not something that you just do. You do for 5 minutes. You can do mindfulness meditation, and that helps you. But really, the goal is to be mindful of our thoughts, our feelings, our sensations, our emotions, our values, and even our spirituality, and be aware of how all of these affect our behaviors and how we react to life. Now, some of the benefits of mindfulness, they've been studied in different fields and in different focuses, whether it's cancer patients or people with mental health issues, or it's just simply how can it influence your life. In the mindfulness ambassadors, we actually found some benefits for college students, for students who did the mindfulness program. Their stress actually dropped from 70%, they were feeling 70% of the time were feeling stressed, to 48% of the students, were feeling stressed out. So there's really some benefits in increasing your positive affect and your well-being, your life satisfaction, and it decreases those negative feelings and life outcomes. Because what we find, and this is supported by the broaden and build theory by Barbara Fredrickson, is that when you intentionally, and I'm going to go back to what Dr. Solara Williams said about doing intentional movement, when you're intentional about something and you're trying to be intentional about something positive, it actually increases your opportunities, to engage with people, and then it actually decreases all of those negative feelings, and you kind of upward spiral into like more positive changes in your body and your sensations and your life. So while you're taking care of yourself internally, it actually helps outwardly. Like Dr. Solara Williams said, there's no such thing as personal health because it affects you. And with that being said, I will say that our lab is one of the best labs I've ever been in, because we definitely value group solidarity and building, and we have so many great team members, undergraduates and also graduate students, who focus on being socially conscious and aware. And so one of our goals is to remember that mindful action, it doesn't solely mean focusing on individual change, but using the self-awareness and the introspection to help better the world. And so with that being said, we want to apply this to social changes, to systemic levels, and to change different systems, because we know with the climate that we have right now is that we want to be mindful about the things that we're doing. And you guys here are college students, different types of college students. You guys are professors. We are the future. We are leaders. And we want to be mindful of ourselves. That way we can be mindful when we are creating those new changes in the world. And so I do just want to say, and kind of touch back on some of the things that Dr. Edens said. Some of those tips that she said, I have used before. This time period has been super, super stressful for me. And I had to just take a moment, sit back, think about how I'm feeling, and cut off some of the social relationships that I've had with people and friends. And I've had to I wanted to apply for for internship this year. This is my year where I'm supposed to apply for internship, but I realized that that's just not something that was going to make me happy. That's not something that I would be super completely stressed out. And I chose to, prioritize my health and prioritize the things that I need to do. And it's not even a big deal. Like I'm applying to internship next year, and I've had such a great time and have been able to focus on the things that I've needed to focus on. So really it's that mindfulness really helped me. So to end, I encourage each and every one of you to select one activity that you do every day and practice mindfulness. And you may, for people who may not know about mindfulness, we have a bunch of resources on our webpage on mindfuluh.org, which I could share with you all. We have different types of mindfulness activities, but for the most part, I want something simple that you can do is select the activity that you already do. For example, if you wake up every morning and drink coffee, you take your coffee, and while you're drinking coffee, think about how it tastes. Think about how it makes you feel, and just sit in the present moment. Do that for about a minute, and you do that 1 minute each day, just drinking your coffee every day, and that will help you create, this mindful action, mindful change within yourself. And just remember that consistent effort is what leads to success. And I will end with this quote. Remember, the secret to change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. And that's from Socrates. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kimberly, for sharing your inspirational story and for highlighting the benefits of mindfulness. I like that idea of building it into our daily routines. I know many of you have questions for our speakers, so let's transition to the Q&A section of our evening. Now, I want you to know that this is a safe space, and you can submit your questions in the chat privately to Q&A. You'll find that in the chat, where we will have somebody monitoring the questions and then presenting them to our speakers. We had more than 40 questions submitted in advance, so let's start with some of those. Erica Mellon with the College of Education will read the questions. Erica?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. This first question is a tough one. We're going to throw it to Dr. Solari Williams. The question is, I get so bogged down with work, the kids, and everything else. How do I hold myself accountable to prioritize my health?
I'm okay with the first question being the tough question. That's actually a perfect question for me. This is something that I say in every opportunity I get to speak with people or speak to groups or individuals. I want to remind you that you are nothing to someone else until you're first something to yourself. And so prioritizing you and your health is not a selfish thing. It's a self-preservation and a self-care thing. And you cannot give to other people if you haven't taken care of you. Think about remember when we used to go on planes? Think about being on a plane. So think way back, right? But when you get on a plane and you're hearing the message, if you're paying attention to the messages when they're giving the safety messages, when they say, if you're traveling with a small child or someone needing assistance and the cabin loses pressure, the mask will drop down when it was pressure. Who do you put the mask on first? Yourself, because you can't help somebody if you passed out. It's the same thing in your everyday life. You are nothing to someone else if you haven't poured into yourself. You can't pour from an empty jar. You have to fill it up. So then the extra, the abundance, that you can give to others becomes something that is just like, it's natural. It's not a burden. It's not I'm sacrificing me. It's not a second thought or I am compromising my health to make sure others are taken care of. And those personal moments for you don't have to be that, I need 5 hours every day to me. It doesn't have to be like that. So Kurt, it can be 1 minute of being in the bathroom by yourself, breathing deeply, taking a moment to center yourself and handle the day, or truly taking the time away to unplug, to disconnect, to just say, I'm going to spend all this time with you, family. And it depends, of course, if you smaller children, they may, of course, not understand that. But if your friends and family respect that space that you need, I love what Kimberly said about being able to just cut some people off and saying, right now, not the time for that. I need to prioritize me. I absolutely support that. And so taking those moments are really, really critical. Don't feel selfish. It's self-care.
Thank you so much. We had a question in the chat. Dr. Solari Williams, could you very quickly just repeat your 3-step recipe, please?
Okay, there we go. I was like, I'm waiting to be unmuted. Yes. Cardio, strength, flexibility. Cardio every day, strength 2 to 3 times a week, flexibility, stretching every day. Hold them 20 seconds each stretch.
Got it. Thank you so much. There's just a little delay, y'all, because we're being unmuted. So thanks for your patience. Ms. Smoots, can you please address for students and really adults too? How can we stay motivated and engaged when there's just no social interaction and we're just left alone to get lost in our thoughts?
That's a good question and something that I definitely have struggled with. And one of the things that I would tell people to do, because there's no cookie cutter way, I could give you some tips. And my tip is to look inside of you. What was working before? What's missing now? And then just add to that. So for me, I really definitely missed, seeing my friends and some of these people here, and in the hallways, talking to them, getting inspiration from them. And so then that meant that I had to find inspiration some other way. I had to find motivation some other way. You know, when I was walking the halls, people would tell me, "Oh, I'm working on this." It would keep me motivated, you know, to work on my assignments and things like that. And I found other ways to do those things. So I have my friends who I keep in touch that are in the program, and we check in on each other and make sure, hey, I want to do this. I will check in an hour. You let me know. If I don't check in, you text me and tell me if I've finished what I needed to do. And so doing those kinds of things, like looking, thinking back and seeing what kind of was working for me and how can I change that? And that would be the advice that I give to students and adults at this time. Kind of reflect back on what was working for you and then add something to that will fulfill that same need.
Thank you. Next question is for Dr. Landa. Okay, my school district offers the option of in-person or online instruction. I want to keep my kids home to be safe, but being physically at school seems to offer the opportunity for my kids to be more socially connected, possibly more engaged in learning. How can I choose?
A good question, and thank you for asking. I think as a school principal and as a parent, my decision for whether my child would return face-to-face or continue virtual learning would have to do with a few things, perhaps their learning style, as well as the safety of them if they were to return face-to-face. So I think that I need to consider, how does my child learn best? Because we do know that some face-to-face learners are going to do better in that environment because they feel more comfortable asking questions, or they have an opportunity for small group instruction after synchronous learning takes place. But we also know we've had many students that have done well virtually. You know, they enjoy that flexibility that, you know, with their schedule throughout the day. They can submit things later in the evening. Their attendance is a bit more flexible there as well. They're also taking advantage of asynchronous learning or teacher office hours to advocate for themselves and go back and answer questions. So I think that that's one major area that needs to be viewed, but definitely also the safety plan of campuses. I think as a parent, we want to understand, what is it that schools are doing to keep my child safe? And we want to be comfortable in sending them there, knowing that it is a priority of that school. I think in terms of social connections, yes, they can be made face-to-face, but we can continue to make them virtually. I think a campus like ours does provide opportunities for students to engage in clubs and organizations after school. We also have an opportunity for students to have face-to-face engagement with others in sports and UIL before school and after school. But both of those, again, do not impact the decision on whether a child is learning face-to-face or virtually. So for me, as a principal and as a parent, I think that I would look at, again, the learning style of my child, the performance thus far virtually, and understand the safety plan for my school to ensure that my child's going to be safe.
Thank you for that. This next question is for Dr. Edens. The question is, while I'm lucky to be home and close to my family, it is hard to get time alone. I've become more impatient and have fights with my family. How can I maintain healthy relationships and my mental health at the same time?
What a great question. It's tough. It's tough. The family probably will need to have a gathering and discussion about boundaries. It's some of the clients that I work with have a hard time even finding a private space to have a therapy session through Zoom. I had a therapy session with a client in the bathroom with her kid beating on the door, "Mommy," you know, and that's just not really healthy for the kid or for the client. How is she going to sort of relax and be present? And I had to request that we reschedule and talk to her about some ways that she could manage that. But it's possible for families to have quiet time where during it's homework time, or it's time when everybody kind of goes to their corner and has their moment, and that parents are sort of off limits during those times unless there's an emergency. And that goes for the couple as well, that the couples don't have to always be in the same space and talking to each other. Some couples feel like if you're not talking, then you must be mad, or you must be, but no, quiet private time is very, very important in most families. And so if you can prioritize it and explain it that, hey, we're going to have game time, or we're going to all take a walk down the street, or we're going to go, but those activities are going to come after we've had some downtime. And when in my job, I talk to people all day long. And so usually when I'm at the end of my day, I want quiet time. I want nobody to talk to me for about 30 minutes. I just want to chill, read the mail, be quiet, don't talk to me. And then I can turn into me again, and not, well, I'm always me, I guess, but then I have, we have mutual needs, as opposed to me being the therapist. So I hope that's helpful. But it is a matter of training your family, setting those norms, sticking to them, be consistent, keep those boundaries. It won't hurt. It won't work right at the beginning because they're going to be resistant to your idea of how you want it to go. But be consistent, and if you ease up on it even once, you have messed up the reinforcement schedule so that you'll never get it going. You've got to be very, very consistent. Hope that's helpful.
Thank you. A sort of related follow-up question we got about counseling. How do we know if it's time to go for counseling with couples being home together 24 hours a day in some cases? If a marriage is in trouble, should we go together? Should I go to counseling on my own? Can you address kind of generally when is it time to get counseling, and do I go myself or do I bring my partner?
Usually, if you start thinking that you wonder if it's time to get counseling, it's probably time to get counseling. It may be that if your spouse is eager to do that with you, then I would encourage you to do it together. If either of you don't want to go, then it's more difficult to focus on the marriage and the relationship, but you can focus on each individual's contribution to the turmoil. And so, my rule is that don't come to marriage counseling expecting to talk about what's wrong with the other person. That's not going to work. So if that's your hope, then you might want to go by yourself at first and just get some clarity around how you're not going to change the other person in your counseling. You're going to each look at how you change yourself. Thanks.
Thank you. A question from the chat. Dr. Solari Williams, can you try and address this? What are your thoughts on intuitive and mindful eating? And maybe for folks who aren't quite familiar, can you just give a quick little overview of what that even means? Thank you.
Yeah, so intuitive versus mindful, thinking that, just eat the times, I see food, like not seafood because we're by the Gulf Coast, but seafood, eat food kind of thing, right? Versus mindful, I'm intentional, again, back to that intentionality, that intentional, I know my body needs. And remember I said something a moment ago, sometimes your body just needs water. You're not necessarily hungry to eat. You just need some water. You're dehydrated. A lot of times that's what's happening. But that scheduling, your body knowing and having that schedule, your body likes that. eating on a schedule is something that your body enjoys. And then when you're off that schedule, it's something your body notices. So when that happens, there are different outcomes depending on the person. Some get cranky or hangry. I've heard that term before. And some get restless, some get anxious, or ravenous, right? And anything in between. And so when you do that intentional eating, you set that schedule, you're planning your day, you're planning your meals. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. And, with the prep, and you see that online on social media with the fancy boxes and containers. It doesn't have to be that over the top, right? And just like Dr. Eden said, it doesn't have to be that perfectionist that you've matched every color code and you've gotten every color of the rainbow. You don't have to go that over the top. Just make sure that you know what you're going to have today. Just know that you're going to get your food in today. And those are things that keep it intentional versus just like, okay, see food, eat food, right? Somebody asked me too to mention the calm. Do I have a moment to mention the calm that I've done in the previous session before? So keep calm, the homage to keep calm and carry on. So keep calm is something that I kind of created for families in these times of, just unrest and, just unease and fear and all those different things. Remember to communicate with each other. Keep communication open and a priority in your household, and keep active. Stay active as a family. Do things together. I love that. Take time to say, no, we're going to go walk. Let's go. Here we go. Let's do it. And commit to that as a family, or game night or something, anything, but have an activity. And then listen to each other. Keep listening to each other. Keep the lines of communication open. Listening, you've got 2 ears, 1 mouth. So listen twice as much as you talk. If your child wants to talk, sometimes they don't want you to fix it. I've said this in another talk before too. Sometimes your child doesn't want you to fix it. They just want you to listen to them. So take some time to just really, truly listen. And you, the friend, sometimes your friend, Kimberly, wants to just call and vent about her day. She doesn't want your negativity coming her way. She just wants to tell you about her day. Give her space to just let her go. Sometimes she needs that. And then sometimes you're going to need that too. So be that for each other. And then be mindful of your time with each other. Every day you get a chance to wake up and get another day, be grateful of that. So be mindful in that moment and remember that, and put some gratitude in. We get another day to get it right.
Thank you. I love that reminder to be grateful. We're getting some excellent questions coming in. We'll address a couple of more, and then we will be respectful of your time, and we'll go to the end of the program in our mindfulness session. But for our next question, this is going to go to Ms. Smoots. How do you recover when someone who was a very helpful, positive influence in your life, you either can't see them anymore, or the pandemic's really gotten to them and they're not being helpful to you? Or for folks who don't have families who they're with, how can people get essentially positive feedback, a positive experience, and positive social interaction when we are being socially distant?
So I'm just going to take a moment to kind of think. And I'm thinking, I was just thinking about the question, when you mean they're not helpful anymore, does that mean that you're just not able to access them? Like it's like an environmental barrier?
In this case, my understanding is the positive role model has essentially turned negative. They're no longer a good resource. So it's not the physical distance. Okay.
Yes. And that just reminds me of growth. Like when you're growing as a person, sometimes there's people who are there for different seasons. It reminds me of that parable or that story about the tree. And there's some friends that are like the trunk. There's some friends that are the or people in your life that are the stems and the leaves and the flowers. Some of them, fall. And so I would go back to like this mindfulness lifestyle, which is the living in the present moment and non-judgmentally accepting what is, and then moving forward. So I would recommend, finding somebody new and finding some peace in that they are no longer helpful at this moment. But I also want to, because I'm thinking about a situation, as you are when you are an adult, sometimes, or when you're younger and you grow up, sometimes people who were your adults and you look up to, you realize, oh, there's other things. And so one thing that's coming to mind also is that, you know, people are human and maybe they're not in a good place as well. And so maybe it might be a good time also to give back to that person what they were giving to you. Maybe reminding them the positive person that they are, because you know, you never know what people are going to. So two things: if you know for a fact that, you know, things aren't getting better, then it might be time to like end that relationship, close. But also it might be a time to give back, and if it's healthy for you to do that, then I think that that would be a good step to also take, and make sure you're, you know, being that positive role model that they were for you. So hopefully that was helpful.
Thank you very much. We're getting some really great personal questions. I think this may have to be the last one. Dr. Landa, this one came through the chat.
Okay.
You mentioned the mental health initiative you have going on at your school. Have you experienced any stigma against the program, or if not a program, then have you gotten any pushback to addressing mental health as opposed to test scores or something else?
I personally have not. You know, I think with our pandemic and what's occurred, we have many staff members that know somebody that's gotten sick. We know students who have been sick. We know somebody, maybe not directly, but indirectly, who you know, who maybe have lost their lives. So there's a lot that's going on. And with returning face to face, there was many stresses, as you can imagine, because we are prioritizing helping students, but we're also prioritizing our own health to keep our families safe. So I believe the majority of our staff are seeking ways to support their mental health, and they ask for it. I have a phenomenal group of again, social emotional support professionals that are doing their best to help both students and staff. So I have not seen any of those stigmas. I think areas that we can grow in is helping teachers build better relationships with students. Sometimes that's not intuitive, right? Or help teachers or staff members want to find ways to meet their personal needs, because again, some of us don't want to ask for help, right? So I think that we can continue to grow there, continue to let them know that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to voice that, you know, I need some guidance on how I can make better connections with my students and understand them, you know, keeping it professional and respectful so that they can grow before the learning begins. So that's an area that we will continue to work in, but I have not gotten any pushback or stigmas in terms of meeting or trying to meet mental needs from our staff and our students.
Thank you. That's a positive sign. As Dr. Edens mentioned, the pandemic bringing attention to mental health. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Butcher to close out the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Those are great questions, everyone. And I know we could keep this great discussion going, but I do want to respect everyone's time. A special thank you to each one of our panel members for sharing not only your personal stories, but all of those helpful tips to cope, inspire, and encourage us. I know I personally took away some great advice. Can we get some virtual applause from the audience if you agree? Now I want to turn this over to Dean Mcpherson for some closing remarks before our short mindfulness session to end the night.
Thank you, Keith, and thank you to all of our panelists. I think you've helped us collectively, you've helped us feel a little less alone and a little less stressed tonight. So thank you very much. To those on campus, if you're struggling, don't hesitate to reach out to CAPS, the Counseling and Psychological Services. They're great people. They'll be supportive and help you through a difficult time. To everyone who's joining us tonight, I wish you and your families good health. I hope we can see each other back on campus soon. Back to you, Keith.
Thank you, Dean. Okay, everyone, please stay with us. We have a quick survey and then prizes for 3 lucky winners. Then we're going to close with the mindfulness exercise. Compliments of Dr. Bradley Williams, a professor of school psychology in the College of Education. So would you please respond to the survey questions? I see we're getting a lot of responses. Thank you for responding to the survey that you see on your screen. It's great to see that a lot of participants are feeling like they're better equipped to manage their mental and physical health, and that you really appreciated this virtual event. Thank you so much for participating in the poll. Could you please tell us what additional topics in the chat that would be of interest to you? This will help us plan for future events. Now the winners, we'll connect with you separately to send you some UH swag. The 3 winners are Wenjuan Han, Lawrence Taylor, and Alejandra Rivera. And now, please welcome Dr. Bradley Smith.
Good evening, and thank you for your patience and listening this evening. I think there's a lot of good advice, and this is a opportunity for you to actually do something you can do anytime, which is develop some control and mindfulness over your life, which is control of your breathing. And breath regulation is one of the most researched, most widely used foundational practices in mindfulness. And I'll go through a couple of things with you today that you can use to breath regulation that have been shown to have very positive effects in helping to deal with stressful times. So the first thing we'll do is deep, slow breathing. If you just go ahead and put your feet flat on the floor, sit up straight. Just notice your breathing as you're breathing normally. And then breathe in deeply through your nose. And exhale slowly through your mouth. Then as you breathe in deeply through your nose, let your belly fill out. And you exhale through your mouth. Let your belly button move back toward your spine. Inhale, let your belly fill. Exhale, belly button moves back towards the spine. Do that a couple more times on your own. Inhale. Nice, big, deep breath. Exhale slowly. And if you can slow down the exhales relative to the inhales, that can give you even bigger effects. You can inhale for a count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale to a count of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's one kind of breath regulation. It's very effective for dealing with anxiety, shown to improve performance of students on tests. Another type of breath regulation that's very helpful for dealing with situations where you have to wait for something, or maybe you're in a very long Zoom meeting or something and want to do something to calm yourself down and get your focus. And that's called square breathing. So if you like the counting before with the with your deep, slow breathing, you'll really like this, because you count for an inhale of 4. So inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold that for a count of 4. 2, 3, 4. Exhale for a count of 4. 2, 3, 4. Hold for a count of 4. 2, 3, 4. So inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Just go ahead and do your own pace for for a couple cycles. Inhale at your own count of 4. Hold for a count of 4. Exhale for a count of 4. Hold for a count of 4. And I would imagine that some of you, if you're going to do that survey over that we started with today, would give yourself a lower score after doing some of these breath regulation exercises. This is something you can do anytime, anywhere, build into your schedule, practice it when you're not stressed, and then you can use it even more strongly when you are stressed. So again, thanks for your attention today. I'm Brad Smith. I'm a professor in the College of Education. I am the faculty advisor of the Mindful Cougs and one of the leaders of the mindfulness movement on campus. And we're really happy to have you here joining us this evening.